My name is Sue. Standing in the opulent ballroom of the Grand Rover Hotel in Raleigh, surrounded by the city's elite, I felt a sense of cold determination. The air was thick with tension, and the silence that followed my revelations was deafening. My family's carefully crafted facade was shattering before my eyes, and I was the one wielding the hammer. It all started 6 years ago, on a sweltering afternoon in Madison. I was graduating from college, but instead of the joy and celebration I had hoped for, I found myself standing alone in a stadium parking lot. My parents, who had always seemed more interested in maintaining their social image than in my life, had ignored my graduation. The only thing I had was a bouquet of carnations I'd bought for myself at a gas station on the way to the campus. I vividly remember that day. The sounds of cameras clicking and champagne corks popping filled the air, but all I could focus on was the emptiness of my reserved seats. I checked them over and over again, hoping against hope to see my parents' faces. But there was nothing, just 3 empty folding chairs gathering dust. That was the moment I made a silent vow to myself. I promised that I would never again wait for people who didn't want to be there for me. Fast forward to my new job in Chicago. I landed a high-paying position at a company called Quantum Shield, a firm specializing in risk compliance for high-frequency trading in the digital currency market. The contract was like nothing I'd ever seen before. Instead of a regular salary, I had a success fee model. For every dollar of fraud I identified and prevented, I'd keep a percentage. With my sharp eye for patterns, I quickly became one of the top earners in the industry, with a projected monthly income of around $5 million. I tried to keep a low profile, but money has a way of attracting attention. A leak in a niche financial newsletter revealed my high earnings, and within 48 hours, my phone started buzzing with calls from my family. My parents, who had barely spoken to me for years, suddenly became the most loving and caring people. Their sweet voicemails were filled with false pride and empty promises of family reunions. I was hesitant at first. I almost deleted the messages and blocked their numbers. But then I remembered the old metal box Aunt Grace had left me. Aunt Grace was the only one in the family who had truly cared about me. When I was 8, my parents sent me to live with her in Idaho, saying the schools there were better. In reality, they just wanted me out of the way. Before she passed away 2 years ago, Aunt Grace gave me a heavy iron key and a sealed envelope, saying, "Open this only when they start acting like they love you." I tore it open, and the words inside changed everything. They don't hate you because you're bad. Sue, they hate you because you're the evidence. It was like a bombshell, and it made me realize that there was more to my story than I knew. I decided to go to the family dinner they'd invited me to, but not for a warm reunion. I was going as an auditor, ready to expose the lies and secrets that had been hidden for so long. When I arrived at my parents' house in Charleston, I could see the signs of financial trouble beneath the surface of their wealthy facade. The house, a large Victorian-style mansion that looked perfect from the outside, had hidden flaws. The roof had some mismatched tiles, and the expensive car in the driveway had an expired temporary tag. My mother greeted me with an overly enthusiastic hug that felt more like a vice grip. My father, on the other hand, offered a firm handshake, the kind you give in a business deal. My younger brother, Jake, was there too, looking uncomfortable and out of place. During dinner, they presented me with a plan to launch a charity called the Hope Horizon Fund. They said they needed my name and my money to make it a success. But as I looked through the pitch deck, I quickly realized it was a scam. The administrative fees were sky high, and there were payments to mysterious companies with no clear purpose. One of them, Starlight Consulting, was being paid a fortune each month, and it turned out to be my mother's friend's company. I knew I had to be careful. If I said no, they would try to smear my reputation. So, I agreed to provide the seed money and serve on the supervisory board, but only after a thorough review of the bylaws and vendor contracts. That night, in the guest room, I started my investigation. I discovered that Starlight Consulting was nothing more than a mailbox in a strip mall. I also found out that Jake's girlfriend was the notary for a contract that was signed before the charity was even officially incorporated. It was clear wire fraud. As I delved deeper, I also uncovered a series of old documents in Aunt Grace's storage unit. There was a photograph of my mother with a man who looked just like me when she was young, and a notebook that mentioned a hospital in Savannah where my birth records had allegedly been altered. I started to piece together the truth. My parents had been involved in a scandal decades ago. My mother, who was struggling with fertility at the time, and my father, who was on the verge of an important business promotion, had bought me from a relative who was in trouble after embezzling funds from a local community project. They falsified my birth certificate to cover up the crime. Just as I was about to confront them, they launched a smear campaign against me. They tried to discredit me at work and spread false rumors about my mental stability. But I was ready. I gathered all the evidence I had, including the financial records and the DNA test results that proved my real heritage, and prepared for the gala launch of the Hope Horizon Fund. At the gala, the ballroom was filled with the wealthy and influential. My family was in full swing, trying to present a positive image of the charity. But when it was time for questions, I stepped forward. I showed the evidence of the fake companies and the illegal transactions on the big screen. My parents tried to deny everything and call me crazy, but I wasn't done. I revealed the truth about my origins. I showed the deed of private settlement and the DNA test results that showed I wasn't their biological daughter. The room fell silent. My mother let out a cry, and my father looked like he had been punched in the gut. Jake finally realized that he had been used as a pawn in their scheme. I announced that I had already submitted all the evidence to the authorities, and the charity's assets were frozen. Then I turned and walked out, leaving behind a family in ruins. The fallout was swift. By Monday, the state attorney general had seized the charity's assets. My father was facing charges for wire fraud and tax evasion. Jake, with my help, got a plea deal, but his dreams of a high society life were over. My mother retreated into seclusion, her social circle vanishing overnight. Quantum Shield reinstated my contract and praised my integrity. I flew back to Chicago, and as I stood in my empty apartment, looking at the dried bouquet of carnations from my graduation, I knew that I had finally found closure. I didn't need their love anymore. All I needed was for them to never forget what they had done.